Yo, Bachi 2007 back at you with another one for Men's Mind State and Cultural Reviews. Another ludicrous article from the New York Times from their modern dating section of the New York Times. Why man keeping is turning women off. This link isn't working, but under the subtitle, Why Women Are Weary of Emotional Labor of Man Keeping, we have that down here under this link. And so we'll go here and check. Right at this link, got why women are weary of the emotional labor of man keeping. And then we have this silly art. We have this woman watering this man plant. Apparently, is what that's supposed to be. And this goes to when we talk about sign language, shame, guilt, insults, and the need to be right. You need to understand that that N in sign language can also be the need to be superior. That's also a major part of sign language from women. Uh, and here in this piece, it talks about uh, this Brooklyn psychiatrist seeing clients. It says, much of the time, Mr. Laurie said his straight male clients tell him that they rarely open up to anyone but their girlfriends or wives. Their partners have become their official therapists. Their partners have become their unofficial therapists, he said, doing all of the emotional labor. Now, this is a concept that women have been throwing around more and more recently. We see this quite often with all of the internet. Feminists, this is one of their major buzzwords. This notion of doing emotional labor by being in a relationship with a man, and that simply engaging with the man and providing the emotional support that partners provide to each other is a labor for which they're not paid and which is a burden on them that they shouldn't have to carry. But really, it's just a way of them pretending to be superior, because this is another one of the psychological needs of the modern woman, of the masculine, uh, dominant woman who wants to compete with men and wants to compete for all of the ways that they are providing and contributing to a relationship, to where they can make it seem as if men are at deficits in relationships and that women bring something to the table and are such great value, unmatched value, where as if there is not an equal exchange of men having to manage women's emotions. The whole, any man knows, any real man knows, that one of the main things you have to do in dealing with women is managing their emotions. It's just the paramount thing to any engagement with the women, which is why men often don't want to be bothered and don't want to deal with women. That's a lot of the reason why men aren't dealing with women these days, is because all of the emotional management that just isn't worth your time and energy. That's why when men are busy and they're busy men, women are always nagging you about spending time with them and this, that, and the other. You're always having to manage their emotions, and it's draining. But they want to act like now that they having to provide a bare minimum of normal relationship support is a labor that they are being burdened with, and as if it is some superior thing that they're doing in the relationship that gives them greater value over men, that puts them at a deficit to be in a relationship with the man. But of course, that's all nonsense. All right, it says that this role has a particular name, man keeping. The term coined by Angelica Ferrara, a postdoctoral fellow at Stanford University, has taken off online. Exactly. Online pop psychologist. Now we're going to look at a video here where on this particular, this is the after party with Emily Jashinsky. I pronounced it before I started the video and forgot the pronunciation. I knew I was going to do that. Jashinsky. After party with Emily Jashinsky, and she's got this guest speaker over here on with her, Spencer Kalaba, something of that nature. So we're going to hear them comment on this as well.
Do I can keep talking about how bad the New York Times is for men all day. I mean, it's
fantastic.
It should.
The New York Times is also where the other article came from that we profiled here about asking men to come back to dating to come back to relationships or come back to being in third spaces and being present with women. So it was this article I did here, or this review of that article that I did. Men, where have you gone? Please come back. They're begging now. There's another one that's also pretty ridiculous. I'm trying to remember the name of that we haven't covered yet. We'll probably be covering that pretty soon as well. But having that context of this is what the New York Times is doing, these types of ridiculous pieces, this is what she's speaking to, and then they're going to get into this particular topic.
This is what RFK Jr. should be doing. You should put health warnings on New York Times articles written by women about men, because that seems, get that through.
RFK being the Secretary of Health and Human Services, so she's talking about putting health warnings on New York Times articles. That's the joke.
The problem with men is they're being subjected to think piece after think piece about the problem with men in the New York Times. Mankeeping is, I think, what technically we call a neologism. We linguists, a new word, and it's probably part of the larger category known, or the smaller category known as algo speak. Have you ever heard that term before? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, so you know about this. I think Taylor.
All right, that's not.
Yeah, man-keeping is not keeping your man, which you would think would be the problem of the kind of person who would write this article, but it's tending to your man, as a la the illustration of this piece, right? That women feel put upon by the necessity of supporting the men that they're with emotionally, encouraging them to go out and do things with their friends, providing for their emotional needs. In other words, being in a relationship and or a marriage.
It's absolutely ridiculous. What they're talking about, again, is simply called a relationship. It's the give and take of men and women being in a relationship with one another and providing each other support. And this kind of absolute foolishness, this superiority mind state, this need to be superior by women and pretend that there is this grave deficit between women's value in a relationship being up here and men's value in a relationship being down here, and the only way we can make up for that value is by paying for everything and serving women at their whim for their desires and wants, and basically being their lapdog and drug around by the nose by women in order to make up for all of these supposed deficits, like them having to man keep us and do emotional labor on our behalf. All of this bull is the very reason why men are going away and they shouldn't come back. Why should men come back to be with women, to have to deal with and be engaged in this utter foolishness? Why would men of any substance, who have any dignity, who aren't thirsty little suckers, who just have to simp just to be in a woman's presence and can't just stand on his own too and be a man? His whole identity is based on getting validation and acceptance from women. Why would any man other than weak, sniveling cowards like that want to be involved with silly females who push this nonsense and demonstrate this level of toxicity towards men? Why would you want to be in a relationship to receive this kind of lack of concern, lack of care, lack of any concern whatsoever for the man's well-being? It's all about competing with men to be dominant over men. And this is why we don't want strong, independent women. Not because you're intimidating, you are not. Not because we can't keep up with you. Women are not winning at the financial game or anything else. Men are still ahead, including black men are ahead of black women in their finances, in average income, and in the number of men at the highest echelons of income. It's more black men. So nobody is intimidated by you or not able to keep up or any of this kind of nonsense. Is because why would we want to deal with you all when this is the foolishness we would receive. This is what you bring to the table. Absolute nonsense and a lack of desire to be feminine, nurturing, and caring women. Why do men want to be with women who aren't nurturing, caring, loving, and who want to be feminine women? Make it make sense.
I mean, this is really quite a remarkable piece. It's one of a number of pieces that have come out in the Times recently. Kind of, it's like anthropological fieldwork done by New York Times reporters into this strange phenomenon called masculinity. It's like suddenly we've realized that after Trump's reelection, there's some sort of problem with men, and men don't have enough spaces where they can congregate all together. They don't feel that they can be their authentic selves. Why might that be? Oh, I know. I have one suggestion. Maybe it's because of the decades of exactly like New York Times berating men ceaselessly for hanging out together, the legal campaigns that have been waged against all male spaces, the fact that even organizations like the Boy Scouts now are being forced to admit women. I mean, this is like a category of piece that I think of as here's a problem that we caused. Now we're here to solve it, right?
Exactly. And so women berate men having their own spaces to do anything. They don't want men getting together to play video games. They don't want men getting together on Sunday to watch football and drink beer at the bar. They want men to come to brunch with women, to do a women's activity, and then complain that men don't don't have anything, don't have anywhere to go except for to unload on women about their emotions or about or having someone to talk to. But where men have had tried to have men's clubs, uh, whether it's men's smoking bars, men's golf clubs, whatever, women always have to intrude on men's spaces and men's activity. uh, and then they complain that men aren't gathering to do things together and that they're burdening them with as far as having anyone to talk to, but they have done everything they could to destroy men's camaraderie and men's opportunity to have men's spaces and as weak men over the last decades, starting with basically the second half of the baby boomer generation, just wilting to women. They have weak men have allowed this, and now we get on the backside this kind of man keeping foolishness that they want to now complain about.
I mean, it's really an amazing article. So did you know that
But they're not even trying to solve it. I guess they're trying to diagnose it. Well, I guess maybe you're right. They're trying to solve it in the most like bizarre possible way by giving it a name. I guess the first step to recovery is admitting you have a problem. But what was it last week? They tried to mainstream the word heteropessimism, which they pulled from some corner of some faculty lounge, presumably deep in the Oberlin campus. And
that was the other piece of foolishness from the New York Times about hetero pessimism. I'm going to have to do a piece on that one as well. Let's get a little bit more of what they're saying here. We're going to wrap up.
I have to imagine, so I have the definition here in front of me of mankeeping, which is, it's kind of interesting. It says women's partners have become their unofficial therapists, doing all the emotional labor. I just hate the phrase emotional labor. And that particular role now is named mankeeping, the term coined by Angelica Putzio Ferrara, a postdoctoral fellow at Stanford. Okay, so I stand corrected. Not Oberlin, but Stanford, has taken off online. It describes the work women do to meet the social and emotional, also another phrase that is just loathsome, needs of the men in their lives, from supporting their partners through daily challenges and inner turmoil. Again, let me just read that sentence one more time. Supporting their partners through daily challenges and inner turmoil, to encouraging them to meet up with their friends. Does that sound unusual in any way to you, Spencer?
And then when you spend time hanging out with your boys and doing things you would like and enjoy, then they whine and complain about how you're not spending enough time with them, how you're not focused on them. Why do you want to be with your boys? You don't like me. Why you doing that hobby? How come you're not calling me more? Don't you want to come spend? Blah, blah, blah. It's a never-win situation with these type of basically self-centered women who, again, are here to compete with men. They're not here to be your complement and be the other half in a relationship with you. They are here to compete with you and to control you. That's why men have gone away, and they shouldn't come back to the dating market.
This is like the funny part about this piece, if you read into it, is that most of it, like I would say about 60% of it, is just a blow by blow of like one fight that a couple had. It's Eve and Glenn. And I guess Eve got a little miffed because Glenn was relying on her to set up their whole social calendar. The really galling part about this to me is this is an actual problem. Male loneliness is
Yes.
a real thing. Loneliness in general in the
No, it's not. There is no male loneliness epidemic. It's a complete lie. There's general loneliness in society. Studies would suggest that loneliness in society is a big problem, generally speaking, but there's no greater male loneliness in society. It has not increased over female loneliness in any plausible form. Also, you have to look at the people who do the studies and the people who promote the studies have an agenda. So there are studies, and then there are the ability to interpret the results of a study. And what you see is people giving their opinion on results, not telling you what the actual study results were. They don't tell you what questions were asked. They don't tell you anything about how the study was conducted. These people don't know how to analyze the study and actually give you competent analysis. They're just giving you their feelings and opinion on some baseline metric and what that metric means. Doesn't mean whatever the person who's telling you about it says it means just because they say so. There's no male loneliness epidemic. That's bullcrap.
age of the internet, the kind of decline in friendship, the replacement of real in-person friendship with these like commoditized likes and social media clicks, all of that 100% real. And especially real, I think, for men. But part of the reason that men are having a tough time with this is because, and I know that this is a really radical thought that you probably, aren't permitted to say on this show, but men and women tend to be different. They tend to behave differently to.
And that is another point I wanted to hit on as well. Men and women, how they communicate and how they express emotion and how they deal and cope with the life are very different. Women want to make men be women, and they complain about men not being manly enough. Then they also complain that men aren't like women enough. What they call emotional intelligence is being emotionally emotive in the way women are, which men aren't. Not because we're deficient or unable to um, release our feelings in ways that we need to. We just don't need to release our feelings in the way women do. We don't need to talk about everything. We don't need to ruminate over everything. We don't need to have feelings about everything. Everything is not feelings based for us. We logically reason things out. A lot of times we cope. The coping is, hey, taking accountability for the situation or whatever your situation you're in and just moving on past it. We don't need to sit there and have a whine session about it for days and weeks and have sister girl talk, because men don't want to sit there and talk about their feelings about stuff because we're not having feelings about it. Then they claim we are emotionally blocked and we need to talk more. And then when a man does, then you whine that you're being put upon for having to do emotional labor. Like, make the social calendar. The reason why this woman has to make the social calendar in the relationship is because she's the one who wants the social calendar. He doesn't want to socialize with all your idiot friends and go do all these activities and go to the pumpkin patch in October or September and walk around in a field of pumpkins for 2.5 hours and take Instagram pics. You want to do that. He doesn't want to do that. So he's not going to make a calendar to do stuff he doesn't want to do. They make up a circumstance that's a problem that doesn't otherwise exist, other than them making it up. And this is why we need not deal with decentered women and disjointed women. That's why men should be leading, and men have always had to carry the emotional burdens in the relationship and to carry the emotional labor by leading and managing the woman's emotions. And this is what we should be doing rather than following women's paradigm which just leads to foolishness and chaos because they're chaotic. Their emotions are chaotic. Their thinking is scattered. Stop listening to women and stop trying to follow and fix their paradigms. Their paradigms are just wrong to begin with.
But all of the relevant ways that you might address this problem are off limits at the New York Times. Like, you can't discuss the ways in which men might, for instance, prefer to focus together on an activity rather than directly on socializing. There's some social science, I think, to back up the.
I specifically was telling this to men in my church group, and by the reason why men don't participate in church as much is because they don't want to sit around and do wailing wall all day and moaning. That's women's way of engaging. That men would participate in church more if there were more activities for them to do, or for to give them a mission to do. Go out and witness. Go out and do hands-on ministry with mentoring young men and other things of that nature. They'd come and participate in that. They just don't want to sit in a room for 2 or 3 hours and wail and whine and have a pastor talk about toxic masculinity and all kinds of other nonsense and be berated by feminized man preachers and other women at the church. And they don't want to moan and whine with these whiny type of prayers that women like to do, that are, it's a lot of female emoting, and it's a lot of a sister circle like the church's disposition is sister circle like, and men don't want to engage in that. That's why they don't come. That's why they don't participate. That's exactly what I was saying.
On socializing, there's some social science, I think, to back up the idea that, there are different ways that men connect. They tend to be like really driven and goal oriented, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it would be good if they had some social clubs. Like, these are all completely taboo subjects. So you're left with this raft of think pieces about, like, oh, I don't know, maybe men need to go to therapy more, or something.
Yeah, as I've said, chaotic women have set up this paradigm of what is needed and what's acceptable, and that accept the whole paradigm that there's even this great problem with men. And so they dictated that the solution to their false made up paradigm, that the answer to everything is going to therapy, is that men haven't had enough therapy, which is not what we need. What we need is to um, have our own purpose and be living out purpose in life. And one of the main purposes men have always had in life and in society was getting a wife, building income to support a family, and making sure their family was taken care of. Well, now we have women who want to be boss chicks, who don't want the men to lead the house, so they don't want them to have that role. They can't have families with these chaotic women. Half of them don't want to have children. Most of the ones who do want to have one measly kid, and a man's supposed to get married and risk all of his financial well-being so he can get one measly kid that she's probably going to take from him at some point, since most of them want to file for divorce these days. And it's just on and on with the problems that are caused by these chaotic modern women. And this is why the men are gone from the dating scene and should not come back. This is why. Because it's a lot of fools. This right here is why men should stay gone from the modern dating scene. What you should do is hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment down below. What do you think about the false paradigm that women have set up, that then they try to claim that needs to be fixed with their prescribed revolutions of therapy, and they're being burdened by having to carry the emotional labor of man keeping? After you've commented, hit one of these videos that probably just popped up, and we're going to catch you on the next one. You're about your 2007. I'm out. Peace.